Hey everyone, welcome back to Author Journey. My name is CJ Anaya. I'm a little hoarse right now because I'm fighting off a cold, so I apologize for that. I'm excited to do this particular tutorial, especially because I was asked to do this to talk a little bit about point of view. I know that that is something that can be very difficult to understand for first-time writers, and even those of us who are seasoned, we can sometimes get a little distracted and switch points of view throughout our manuscript, and then our editors get after us, and so it's good to review these things. So for anyone who is new or anyone who wants to review, we're going to talk about point of view right now. So if you are new to the family, make sure you subscribe, make sure you like this video, and let's get started learning about point of view. So for you newbies out there, and anyone needing a refresher, point of view refers to the perspective from which a story is told, or from which specific sections of a story are told. Point of view allows us to see events unfold through the eyes and thoughts of a specific character. It gives the reader a deeper, more intimate connection to the character as opposed to watching the events play out in a movie. So we can get into a character's head and read those internal thoughts, or we can't get into a character's head and read those internal thoughts when watching a movie. That's usually why most people feel like the book was better than the movie because it's a little bit harder to connect to characters in film because we're not in their head. We're not feeling their emotions as they're feeling them. So those actors have to portray those emotions on their faces, and brilliant actors are very, fabulous and capable of doing that. But most of the time, we like the books more because we're in it with them. We're seeing it from those characters' perspectives, and we can experience it through them. Another reason why point of view is so powerful is because we have access to a character's emotions and experience those emotions right along with them. So why is point of view so important? Point of view helps your readers determine with whom they will identify. It also helps them connect emotionally and care about the character. You can create tension and suspense by controlling what is revealed to your character, and the readers experience this as the character experiences it, making everything more immediate. Point of view prevents your reader from receiving the story as a second-hand report. It helps you as the author show rather than tell. So we're going to get into the types of point of view. The narrator is the person telling the story. It can be a character or someone who isn't even participating in the story. But the most common types of point of view are found in novels are first person, which uses the pronoun I, or third person, which uses the pronouns he or she. First person point of view. The narrator is one of the characters in the story, so the reader only has access to this character's thoughts and feelings. Second person point of view. The narrator is an outside observer and uses the pronoun you, and that means the reader is placed in the role of protagonist. So only the thoughts and feelings of this character are revealed. Third person omniscient point of view. The narrator is all-knowing or omniscient entity, which is usually opinionated, who isn't a character in the actual story. And this narrator can see into the minds of all the characters. So third person limited point of view. The narrator is a neutral observer who isn't a character in the story. And this narrator only has access into the mind of one character and can tell the reader what that character is thinking and feeling. Now I know I keep going to each one. We are going to delve into them separately, and I'm going to give you examples just so that you'll understand what these mean exactly. Deep third-person point of view, similar to first-person point of view, where the narrator is a character in the story. But as in third-person limited point of view, the reader is only told about the thoughts and feelings of one character. Third-person multiple point of view. This is a type of third-person limited point of view, but it can also be used as a deep point of view. So the narrator can either be a character or a neutral observer, and the narrator only has access to the thoughts and feelings of one character per scene or per chapter, and can switch to different characters at scene or chapter breaks. You usually see this a lot in romance books. So you'll get, from a third person perspective, one love interest's view on things from a chapter from their perspective. And then the next chapter over, it'll be from the guy's perspective. So that's very cool because you can see how both are feeling, get into the mind of both, and really connect to both. Third person objective point of view. The narrator is a neutral observer who views the actions from the outside but cannot reveal thoughts or feelings of any characters. So now we're going to delve a little bit deeper into first person point of view, since this is one of the point of views that gets used quite a bit in fiction. Now take a look at your manuscript or the book you are reading right now. If the narrator uses pronouns such as I, my, and me, then the book has been written in first person point of view, or you're writing in first person point of view. The narrator is usually the protagonist in this instance, although there are a few instances where the secondary character narrates the events unfolding from their own perspective as they observe the protagonist. You see that play out with Dr. Watson in Sherlock Holmes, because Dr. Watson is narrating it, but he's narrating it from the past. So this is called first person peripheral, because he's the secondary character, but he's telling events through his eyes as he discusses Sherlock Holmes, who is obviously the protagonist. Many books are written in first person past tense, and that tends to be the norm for first person for most adult books. It's becoming more and more popular in young adult fiction for books to be written in first person present tense. So there are some readers who are very much used to past tense, and they don't really enjoy present tense. I'm going to tell you the difference between past and present if you're confused on that at all. So it is important to pay attention to the subgenre you are writing in to figure out which tense is being used more often. This is why I always encourage you guys to study the market. It helps you understand what is popular, not just with tropes and subject matter, but also in this instance with what are people reading within these subgenres? What are they enjoying? Do they like first person better than third person? What are you seeing happen more often? So it's a great way to gauge what you're going to do and what's working best for these authors and these readers. So past versus present. When writing in present tense, you use words like have, ask, walk, talk, meet, greet, sway. But if you did it in past, you change the words to had, walked, talked, met, greeted, swayed. This might seem like just very elementary to most of you, but I know a lot of people who join my channel who are learning English. So hopefully this will help you understand past versus present in the English language and can help you a little bit more as you're writing your books. I know that I've edited quite a few books from people overseas, and the biggest thing I notice when it comes to their writing is that they switch points of view, which can get dicey, and also they switch from past to present tense because it is so complicated sometimes. I know that English is a hard language to learn. I tried to learn Portuguese, and I did learn Portuguese and speak it fluently, but that was very difficult. You had to learn the past and present tenses for Portuguese. It was so frustrating, and it took me a while. So if any of you are bored, I'm sorry, but this is going to help people who are from overseas learning English. Hopefully this will help you out. First person present. I turn the corner and run right into the very person I'm trying to avoid. So that was an example of a sentence written in first person present. Now this is that same sentence written in first person past. I turned the corner and ran right into the very person I'd tried to avoid. So if you'll study these, you can see the difference between the first person present, first person past. And sometimes as I edit books, I notice that people will even switch present and past within the same sentence. That can get a little dicey, so you really got to pay attention to those. Present tense. An example of books written in first person present tense is the young adult series, The Hunger Games. I remember I was not used to reading books in first person present. I was very used to reading them first person past. I think that, and maybe I'm wrong, and I just hadn't been reading enough at the time, but I think The Hunger Games kind of blew that wide open there and really got a lot of young adult readers interested in first person present tense. I didn't like it at first. It took me a couple chapters to get into it because I wasn't used to it. Now I actually really enjoy present tense. Now here is a paragraph of my current work in progress. It's written in first person present tense. Just wanted to give you a few paragraphs to help you get into it and you can see exactly what this is. I underlined a few things here and there just so you could see the present tense and also the pronoun that I use for first tense. I literally have no idea what I'm going to say to Weston's secretary, but I'm hoping for a sweet, senile old woman who is as trusting as she is gullible. What I get when I enter room 303 is an immaculate reception area with a receptionist who couldn't possibly be older than 18. I keep my confident smile glued to my face once her eyes land on me, but the way she gives me the once-over and narrows her brows makes me realize I've been measured, weighed, and found seriously wanting. I decide to hope for the best and reach her desk in a few easy strides. Hi there. I've got an appointment to meet with Mr. Weston today. She tilts her head to the side and studies me, not even bothering to check her computer to confirm the appointment. Yeah, I don't think so. She flips her long auburn hair over her shoulder as her green eyes drill holes into my forehead. Excuse me? The young lady picks up what looks like a limp weed from her plate and takes a large bite, masticating it just like a heifer would with its own cud. I'm so horrified by the sheer lack of sugar in the vicinity, I nearly lose my mind and offer her a cookie. So that is from the romance that I'm writing right now, that I keep writing. I'm telling everyone I'm writing it, I still need to finish. This is just a few paragraphs from that same thing, but I just switched it into past tense so you can see the difference. And if you want to switch back and forth with these slides, you can, just to analyze it if that helps you. I literally had no idea what I was going to say to Weston's secretary, but I was hoping for a sweet, senile woman who was as trusting as she was gullible. What I got when I entered room 303 was an immaculate reception area with a receptionist who couldn't have been older than 18. So if you'll switch back and forth, you can see the difference between past and present. And for those of you who already know this, again, I'm sorry, but I do like to help any subscribers who are international learning English. I hope that this is helping them. Voice is really important, you guys. Since first-person point of view is usually told from the protagonist perspective, you really need to make sure this protagonist has a strong voice that readers can connect to. It needs to be believable. So ask yourself how your protagonist might say things or think things based on their education, their living conditions, their cultural upbringing, age, gender, and interests. In other words, an American teenager's thoughts and speech patterns will be much different from a British adult's thoughts and speech patterns, okay? So pay attention to that. And that could also determine whether or not you want to write in first person or third person based on how deep you need to get into the point of view and how comfortable you are using speech patterns that you may not be accustomed to. Pros and cons of first person. The pros are first person can sometimes feel more natural to new writers because they can use the pronoun I when telling the story, and we're generally used to doing that when we do tell a story. We use I a lot. The readers can identify most closely to the protagonist since they experience the story through the protagonist's perspective. Now here's a few cons. The first person can narrow the scope of the story, so the reader only knows what the protagonist knows, and the reader won't experience the thoughts and feelings of any of the other characters unless those thoughts and feelings are verbally expressed by those characters or shown through action by those characters. But you're still experiencing it secondhand through the protagonist's perspective, so it's not quite the same as being in those other characters' heads. You've also got a lot riding on your protagonist and how engaging their voice is, since you're not getting into the head of any other character. It is all riding on this protagonist. They are telling the story. Some people, now naturally you need to have a great protagonist anyway, but there's a lot of pressure there to make that protagonist just fabulous. Some people truly hate first person point of view. I find that a lot of people say they just prefer third person. I really haven't found anybody who absolutely despises third person, but I will generally run into people who say, I could do without first person. So again, just these rules are always changing. I hate for people to say, oh, you should only do first person for this genre, or you should only do this for this. Things change. They really can. Someone's always going to push the envelope a little bit, try something new and do something different. So try to use a rule of thumb, but also continue to study the market, see what trends are happening, see what things are becoming more popular with people, see what you can do to make it yours and what you're most comfortable with also. One way to circumvent some of these issues that I've just mentioned is by doing something that has recently caught fire in lots of romance subgenres. One chapter or scene, it's just like third person, multiple points of view. Okay, but you're just doing it first person with multiple points of view. One chapter or scene is told in first person from one love interest perspective, and then the next chapter or the next scene is told in first person from the other love interest perspective. So you can actually write both of these characters in first person and from both of their perspectives, so long as you do it within chapter breaks. So don't head hop within the same scene. I've talked about that a lot in other tutorials. Don't head hop. Don't jump into one love interest head and then jump into another love interest head within the same scene or the same chapter, unless there's some scene breaks or chapter breaks in there. So be really careful of that. But if you will start reading in these specific subgenres, you will start to find that there are lots of romance novels where it's all told in first person, but they're able to explore both love interest characters and get the readers delving into both of those minds simply by switching perspectives within each chapter, the same way that third person multiple points of view do. So that's kind of cool, I think. Should I use first person? Well, it just depends on your genre. Again, first person is used a lot in young adult, in urban fantasy, in paranormal romance, in chick lit, and women's fiction. And up until a few years ago, most romance readers and writers preferred romance written in third person point of view. First person tends, again, to limit the reader's ability to connect with the other love interest when only one perspective is shown. Now we see first person more often with switched perspectives per chapter, and I just finished saying that. I just went into a lot of detail talking about that. So first person is great for you if your story is very character driven and focuses on internal conflict and personal growth. That's when first person can just really be amazing. I wouldn't use first person if you're working with a huge ensemble cast of characters or delving into epic fantasy and complex science fiction where there are just multiple characters or your main character isn't present in all your crucial scenes. There have been a lot of times where I've done some editing for newbie authors and I noticed that they suddenly in the middle of the book will add a chapter of something very crucial to the story or the plot, but it's not from the protagonist's perspective as it has been throughout the entire book previously. Suddenly this new information is here that the protagonist needs to have, but the protagonist isn't even in there, can't learn it, and yet it's done from a completely different character's perspective. That's a big no-no. And so you've got to be consistent with what you do throughout the book. But also, if there are scenes where it's going to be really important for your protagonist to experience or to learn this information, then you need to find a way for that protagonist to either overhear it, be in a situation where they can discover it, or you simply need to, throughout the book, switch perspectives with each chapter. Instead of introducing a new perspective in the middle of a book, it just doesn't work. Okay, writing exercise, because we love those, because that's how we learn. So I want you guys to take a paragraph from your current work in progress and write it in first person present tense. If it's already in first person present tense, then write it in first person past tense, and then write it in something else. So write it in third person. So which feels more natural? Can you continue writing from that point of view, or do you tend to switch back and forth? I found when I first started writing My Fair Assassin, I actually had written it in third person, but about halfway through the second chapter, I realized that I had actually switched into first person, and I'd written the rest of the book in first person, and I thought, well, that's just odd that I did that. I really had meant to do it in third, and I went back and tried to fix it, but it just didn't feel right, so I ended up leaving it in first person. I fixed the first and second chapters to fix that. So I would try out different ways, see what's more natural, especially with the particular protagonist you're dealing with. This exercise can be helpful when trying out a story in first person and then switching it to third, just as I did with My Fair Assassin. So which point of view do you find yourself most naturally diving into? This is a great exercise to use when you're first starting out, or even when you're in the middle of your manuscript. I've had a lot of author friends contact me just kind of woefully mourning the fact that they're halfway through their book and they're suddenly realizing that the perspective is all wrong, that they need to change it from third to first or from first to third. It's a real bummer when that happens, but sometimes you just got to do it if it's working better. So author problems, hashtag author problems. So just I think it's always better to try and do that before you actually start writing the book, because different protagonists and different characters will demand different things of you. Those voices in our head are always so demanding. They're going to ask for something different. So I hope that you'll start this exercise and start figuring out which will work best for you. In the next video, we're going to go into third person, different ways you can do that. This next video isn't going to be that. I mean, this whole series won't be too extensive. We're really just going to focus on first person and third person, since that's what's used most in fiction. And if you liked this, please like it. Please comment below. If you have any questions, let me know. I'd love to do more videos to help you if you have anything specific in mind. And please like or subscribe to the channel if you'd like to join the family. And we'll talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.